listen.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Get on baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
In case you don't know, there's no human being I'd rather be talking to right now than Derek Falvey. And it's Derek. It's an awesome time to talk because, well, I guess it's an awesome time to talk, but maybe this is why I want to talk to you. An uncertain, a weird time to talk, where you have an off season, you have a spring training, and now here we go, and we get so consumed with opening day of being the be all end all. But there is that moment for you guys of okay. This is what we've done. This is what we have. Let's go.
Yeah, no doubt. You get to spring training for me every year is you get here and you have butterflies at the front end because you're excited to get started again. Then you roll. You get everyone ready. You get a little lull in the middle, right? You're kind of a little. I don't want to call it bored, right? It's not boring. I promise you that. Yeah. But it's just this, we got to get going. And then you get really close to opening day. The trucks show up. You start seeing stuff go north, and you're thinking, okay, now's the time to go. I'm really proud of the work our guys put in this spring and excited about the season ahead.
So we had Hazen on last week, and besides giving me crap about the exact sweatshirt I'm wearing now, he was talking. I said, hey, how does this work? Does it like Hard Knocks, where you get in a room and everybody pounds the table for somebody? He said that he went away from that because he's too many cooks in the kitchen. Yeah. Everybody's different. How do you guys do it?
Yeah, it's different for everybody, and I would say when we look at it, depends on the year and the roster that you have. For us, a lot of the guys returned from last year's club and the team we finished with. There were some young players that kind of took steps forward, and we knew there were going to be a last couple of spots going. But for us, as long as guys stayed healthy, there really were only a few spots kind of up for grabs. What we do, we have a conversation beforehand, before it gets emotional, before it gets intense at the end, a little bit about, ideally, if we stay healthy, what does this roster look like? And then Rocco, Jeremy Zoll, and I, we have some conversations around, hey, has anything really changed our mind, right? Is there any information from the pitching coaches, from the hitting coaches that might signal that we should pivot a little bit? And for us, we generally try and keep that as unemotional as possible, because the key is, Rob, you just said it, we break with 26. We know that.
Yeah.
A week into the season, we need 28. Now, 3 weeks into the season, we need 31, right? It's just the way it goes. You're going to need guys. So the players that you send down, you need to make them aware that, hey, the opening day roster, I know it's important to you. We're going to need you. We're going to need you ready to go.
Which is still hard for them to get their head around.
No question. It's just important that you relay that, and then you stay in touch with them, and you stay consistent and connected, because they come up a week later pretty often when you have something that happens.
And then there's the decision making, which I find fascinating. I find myself, Derek, going to guys and say, hey, listen, you look great. You got 3 outs. But, okay, now the next question, how did your analytics measure out? And so I've seen guys in camp mentioned, not in your camp, but other camps, and say, I'm like, well, he hasn't got very many people out, and then they're praising him up and down. So how do you look at that? Because it's a whole new world when it comes to that, right?
Yeah, no doubt. You're looking at some data and some information around how the pitchers are playing. Let's take a pitcher, for example, right? Guy's working on something. He's working on the quality of his breaking ball, right? And it's really spinning good, and he's landing it the way he wants to. And maybe he's even throwing it in counts that he wouldn't normally throw it in, and he gives up a hit, right? That happens from time to time. But if you know the process behind the plan and what he's trying to do and what he's trying to execute, spring training is sometimes about testing some things out, because once the lights turn on and it's regular season time, you can't test anything anymore. You got to go. So the way we look at it is performance does matter, right? You need to go execute. You need to go do things on the field. But sometimes it's executing the plan that you intended to at the beginning of the day. A couple ground ball singles through the field is a little different than if you're giving up hard contact and power and things aren't going well, maybe you need to readjust. But the reality of spring training is there's a wide range of players on the field at any given time, right? Sometimes you're playing against high A players. Sometimes you're playing against American League All-Stars. So it's just a little bit of a difference in terms of actual performance that you're looking at, but you are trying to see how are they performing against the things they're really working.
Is that hard? Is it hard not to be? As media members, it's hard, not impossible to be reactionary.
No doubt. We all get reactionary, no question. But when we think about it, say a guy has, let's take on the offensive side, a guy has 30, 35 plate appearances, 40 plate appearances through spring training, any 30 to 40 plate appearance cycle in the middle of the season, you're not even paying attention to, right? It's a reality through the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows. It's because it's all we have to evaluate is this. So we do look at performance. We want guys to go out and compete and win, right? That is the goal. So at the end of the day, but sometimes if it means today you're competing and trying to win with your changeup, even though you got a devastating slider, that's good for you because that will make you better over the long run.
What is give me an example. Give me an example of going back throughout your years of a tough decision that you had to make heading out of spring training. It can be a big deal, it could be a small deal.
I think every year we have at least one tough decision toward the end, right? And sometimes it's toward the back end of your roster, maybe the last guy on the bench. There's often times where when you'll leave camp and you'll look at your team, and this is a tough decision to make every year, you've got a really good young player who you want to keep having regular everyday at bats. But you know that the way your roster is constructed sometimes, it's not going to work like that. That he's only going to get part-time play maybe once a week behind your regulars in the infield. And you make that call at the end of camp to send a guy to AAA who you think is highly talented, and you maybe go with a player that fits a little better with your roster in terms of what, maybe it's a speed guy, maybe it's a runner off the bench, maybe it's a bat that's just left-handed that can go complement a right-handed hitting corner outfielder, something like that. We've had that every year, and I think much like this year, we're going to have one of those types of decisions toward the end of camp, I'm sure.
How about when you tell, this is, one of the things we love is we love the videos of guys telling they get called up, and the other thing is like guys telling guys they made the team. Yeah. Like telling guys they didn't make the team sucks, but like for you, like what was the best I told a guy I made the team story?
Oh man, I can think. You said it right. The hardest ones are the ones that are guys that are competing, that have been here before, that you might need to send down. And I remember some really difficult conversations with some players where emotion comes out, right? And so when you do get that one other time where you get to sit in the room and you get to tell a young kid that he made the team, just the emotion, the elation, the desire to want to call mom and dad, right? Like whoever they want to connect with. It's just a really cool experience. I've had a number of them over my career where whether it's a last rotation spot, a Simeon Woods Richardson, guys that find a way to the big leagues. It's just really fun to see how they react.
And then when you go through spring training, then there's the unexpected. You had the unexpected the other day, like it was with Royce Lewis, right? I mean, it's like at this point, when you get to that level, the last week or so of spring training, you can't help but saying, okay, this is how this is going to look when we open up this in St. Louis. Like, this is how it's going to look. And then maybe you're in the back room eating a hot dog, whatever. Wait, what happened? What happened? Take from your perspective, like how do you handle that? How did you handle that?
Yeah, well, in those moments, and certainly for Royce, just given what he's been through, as a player, he's an extremely young, talented player who's dealt with a lot of different injuries over the course of his career. So to watch it happen in the moment, you're just devastated. Just like a fan, just like anybody else watching the game, just like a media member. You feel for the kid. You want him on the field. You know he's going to impact your team positively, and it hurts your team. But in the moment, it's a human reaction where you're just devastated for him. But the good news is we learned the hamstring strain that he has. We feel like it's more in the moderate range. He's already feeling better, moving around, so you quickly flip to how he can return. How we deal with it from a roster building standpoint, we do a lot of work even before camp starts go around the diamond. If this player's hurt, what do we do? If this player's hurt, what do we do? If this player's hurt, and you go kind of layer by layer, and you realize like it's important for you to have depth. It's how you end up in the conversations you have with free agents, with trades around, okay, do we feel like if we have a couple of things happen, you can't predict everything, and you can't even prepare for multiple injuries in some ways, but we are always prepared for how does the next layer of defense work. In that case, Jose Miranda, good young player for us, still a guy who has played third base. You prepare Brooks Lee, you prepare Eddie Julian at second base, and Mickey Gasper playing in different spots in the infield. You want to make sure that you have layers of depth that protect you in the event of injury, and we feel we do.
I tell you what, like a moment like that, like you said, and Roy seems like a great guy, not absolute great guy. So you feel for him. Another guy that I know a little bit was Mickey Gasper. I was walking down to the clubhouse, and he got hurt. He had to play, and we're talking about the last Grapefruit League game. And this guy who's had a really good camp, who obviously like has a spot in the organization, and I watch him walk out in crutches. And I know it's a laceration, when you walk out in crutches, and I'm just like, oh man. And I know in case people don't know the Mickey Gasper story, it's really
Great kid.
great kid. Like to get to the major leagues and all of that stuff, and then to get to where he is, and then you see this last moment. And watching him walk out, and I wanted to say hello to him, but I didn't feel like that was the time. But like, again, that was another example, right?
Yeah, it's cruel sometimes, right? This game can be hard on guys. You know the stories, I know the stories. We love this game of baseball because of the connections we have with the people inside of it, right? And yes, the game on the field we love too. We love watching that. But it's those moments when a Mickey, and when it happened, you see it happen, you're thinking, oh, did he roll an ankle? Did he hurt his hip? Did he hurt his knee? You never know right away. The good news, if there's good news, is laceration. He's got a few stitches to show for it. We'll see how he pops in today, but the good news is that structurally everything else is actually in a good spot. So hopefully we dodged the bullet there because he is a kid that, oh man, if you want to root for a young kid in baseball, this is the kid, right? He's shown up every day. He's worked his butt off. He's put himself in great position. He's a good little hitter. He's got a good feel for the barrel. When we acquired him from the Red Sox, we felt like it was a guy that could really help us with a little bit of depth. And he's gone out and earned every bit of this in spring training. So we'll see how it tracks over the next couple of days. Hopefully we can bandage that up and keep the stitches in place and see where things track.
Yeah, I'm glad. That makes me happy. Maybe the answer to this next question is him. I don't know. But there's also, like you talked about, the plans, the best laid plans, a boom, 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 depth chart. But there's always someone who just, the more you watch them play, like they make the most of spring training, they emerge. Who is that guy for you this year?
When we look at our camp, Mickey would clearly be one of them because when we acquired him, we felt like he could play a little bit of a role, maybe at second, depth at first. We had him catch, right? He's caught through the minor leagues. There's a real nice benefit to maybe having a third catcher on your team because of what it allows you to do for the other guys. We love Ryan Jeffers and Christian Vasquez. We also know that if we have a runner on the bench in a big spot in the game and we can run for a catcher, it's always a little scary if you lose kind of your backup late in the game in a tight game. Knowing you have a guy that could go back there if needed is a tremendous asset. So our view of that is he fits for us. He's one. Another guy I'd say for us that I really am proud of is Eddie Julian. He's a guy that a couple short years ago was a big part of our team at the end of the 2023 season, hitting toward the top of the order, helped us win that playoff series against Toronto, had some big hits in the Houston series that we had. And when you look at him, he had a down year last year. He had that sophomore setback, so to speak, right? And for him, it was enter the offseason, reset, make some swing adjustments that I think he knew he needed to make. And he's come into camp and done everything we've asked of him. So I'm really proud of the work he's put in, the swings that he's had, the performance that he's had on the field, and hopefully we see a better version that looks much more like 2023 Eddie Julian.
That's a great one. Hey, on the other end of this scale is like the top of the roster, which is Carlos Correa. And I do want to ask about him, about the importance of him. When you have a good team that you bring back, pretty much the foundation team of what you had. But the importance is to have that guy. We talk about foundation. And when you acquired him, and maybe we talked about this last year, but like what you knew what you were getting, not only as a player, right? No doubt. But in terms of, I just feel like it's important to have that guy who doesn't have to get on the stool in the middle of the clubhouse and say, I'm the leader, but everybody knows he's the leader, right?
No doubt. I would say that you hit it right on the head. Carlos is the guy that shows up every day, is one of the first to get there, one of the last to leave. He and kind of Pablo Lopez is our equivalent on the pitching side, same way, same work ethic, same approach, same every day. But what Carlos brought was a bit of credibility to the group in terms of he's won, he's been there. He's been in those big games. He's been in those big moments. And it didn't show up any more than it did in the 2023 playoffs, making maybe one of the best defensive plays I've seen in the playoffs ever, backing up a ball that went off our third baseman's glove. He came in, made a play at the plate, saved the game for us in our estimation. In those moments, he can slow it down. Right, it's a low heartbeat in big moments, and that can be translated to other guys on the team, but it has to be done by way of those conversations in the room. The teammate behavior, how you talk about it. Carlos is famous on our team for bringing guys on the road into his hotel room, ordering a bunch of food, and watching West Coast baseball when we're on the East Coast after our game. Right? Yeah. He loves that connection to the game. He loves trying to find a way to get guys to think about it more actively. That's a critical component to winning teams.
As a team building, like the art of team building, and we talked a lot about. I just had conversations with Tommy Pham about this, about winning, because obviously, that's what he's sort of. That's his bread and butter. Walker Buehler, I just talked to about winning, about guys who want to win, guys who want to talk baseball. Like you have to build a team. You have to build a talented team. but you also have to build a team that have guys like that. Like,
No
so
doubt.
important, right?
No doubt. When I look at it is, listen, a lot gets made in our sport of the data, the analytics, the information. It's important, no question. It helps us make decisions, right? Much like if you have a financial advisor for your retirement, not everything's going off of just their gut feel. They need to do some analysis. They need to look at what the baseline is, what the foundation is. But at the end of the day, the things that make you that much better are those team first behaviors, right? Are the guys that lean in and lead when times are tough, right? Because I don't care how good a team you are, you're gonna have a bad stretch in the season at some point. How do you respond to it? How do you deal with adversity? How do you come back? And for us, we have the guys in the room that have gone through that before, that have built that kind of clubhouse culture. And even when we went through tough stretches last year toward the end of the year, our guys always showed up. They always kept fighting. And that's all you can ask for. You want that kind of team. You want that kind of personality in that clubhouse. You want that kind of fight every day of the week, and then you hope things shake out the way you want to at the end.
And it starts, also with the manager too. Like, Rocco is, I know that Rocco came from Tampa under Kevin Cash, but having been around both those guys, their demeanor to me is very similar.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is, we're not a lot of wasted motion. No, this we're not going to bullshit you. This is how it is, and just setting the right tone. And there's a reason why I think Rocco's had success. There's a reason why Kevin Cash is, bizarrely the most longest tenured manager now.
I know.
But just speak, I guess, a little bit about Rocco, what he has done.
Yeah, now that I've worked with Rocco for the years that I have, and I got a chance to work with Kevin in Cleveland for a year. I worked with Terry Francona for a long time in Cleveland. I've seen different managerial styles. Rocco came up through that too. He played for Joe Madden, right? He was around Kevin Cash. He played for Terry Francona for a brief bit in Boston. He's really, I think the most important thing for the best managers I've been around is they're just authentic to who they are, right?
That's exactly what I was trying to find.
That's you can't pretend to be something else. Rocco's not going to fire his hat on every error we make, because that's just not who he is. He's there to support the guys. Now, behind the scenes, in closed moments and closed door moments, you got to have some tough conversations, and he has those with players. But every one of those players walking out of that office knows he has their back. And I think that's the most important thing from a manager-player relationship is, listen, I'm here to hold you to a high standard. I'm here to make sure that you're accountable to the things we're asking of you, but I got your back, and I'm going to be here for you, and I'm going to support you. And Rocco, right from day one, you knew that was true. Now he's learned, he's grown, he's now more veteran, so to speak, and he's got it.
The authentic thing is this. So, genuine people go so far in this game, and we've talked. The players and people in baseball that I've always gravitated to, even the flawed ones. I'm like, well, they're genuine, right? Yeah. They're just it's okay. Like, if you're genuine and authentic, that's an important thing, especially not to be old man yelling at clouds, but when so many people are trying to impress on social media or whatever it is, right?
My view of it is the best people I've been around the game, be humble, be curious, right? And then just be yourself, be authentic, right? And I think that if you do those things on a regular basis, if you're willing, the humble part is, how do you be the best teammate you can be? Whether you're in my position or Rocco's position, or you're an intern in your first year, I don't think I changed the way I walked into a ballpark any of those days in all my years in my career. It was, how do I help people be the best they can be around me? How do I be the best teammate I can be, right? And then curiosity. It's like, how can I continue to learn? Yeah, there's a ton of new information and data and all that. I need to learn that. But how do I learn more? I mean, Terry Francona made such an impact on me as a person and as a leader, because he let me be around and ask him questions and learn about what clubhouse culture looked like, where it was the best, and when did it go sideways, and what mistakes were made, and what would you do differently. Tito is an open book on all those things, and because of that, I learned that from Chris Antonetti, I learned that from Mike Chernoff, I learned that from Mark Shapiro, so many different people I worked for along the way, and now I get to learn it from my teammates in here. I get to learn it from Rocco, from other staff members, from coaches, from other players. And I think if you continue to do that in this sport, in this game, you got a real chance to continue to grow and develop.
The second to last thing is back to a player. And I am going to apologize ahead of time for potentially jinxing him, but I am proclaiming that Joe Ryan is going to be in the Cy Young candidates or conversation. I firmly believe this. And this is probably reactionary from seeing him pitch yesterday, but still, I followed this guy about his mind, his ability, and all of this. Please tell me I'm right.
Yeah, Rob, I would tell you this. Joe has been tremendous for
Yeah.
us. And it was more devastating to our team than even we probably fully realized when it happened. When he got hurt last year in Chicago, it was a freak injury, a Terry's major strain that, just throwing a pitch, this guy takes tremendous care of himself. He's in great shape, all those things. These things happen in baseball, right? And when we lost him, it really hurt our pitching staff. We had to rely on some really young guys. But what you're pointing out is he continually gets better. And this guy's been good since the day he put on a major league uniform. And we're really fortunate when we got him in that trade that he stepped in and really helped us right away. And we've leaned on him throughout. I mean, he continues to get better. You talk about the curiosity. He's always trying to make adjustments and figure out what he can do to be the better version of himself. I think that's what leads to Cy Young caliber seasons. Now, I was fortunate to be around Corey Kluber for a few years in Cleveland, watch the way he thought about pitching and how to get better and how to improve at every turn. Joe has a lot of those same characteristics.
I think that, and yesterday, talking to him briefly after the game of his last Grapefruit League outing, he had mentioned, he's like, how he feels now that he's not searching, that he can implement.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's all right, we're always learning, but to feel like I put all this stuff in the basket, now I'm ready just to roll, and we'll adjust as it goes. But I think as a thinker, when I hear that, or not me as a thinker, but to see the thinkers, when they say that, they're like, good, you aren't overthinking. You are just going. You are just pitching. Like, to me, that's a thing.
No doubt. I think that there's a guy who gets to the big leagues at the front end of his career and is trying to figure out how to stay.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's trying to figure out how to compete at the highest level against the best players, and it feels like it's going fast. And then you get to that middle range where you start to say, okay, I'm settled in. I'm starting to figure this out a little bit. I'm taking in new things from veterans, from my teammates, and I'm learning. And then you're in that master's program, so to speak, at the big league level. And then you finally shift to like execution and how you can implement and how you can do it. The game slows down. It's a much more, you know what you're trying to do every day. Joe's at that phase of his career, and I'm really looking forward to what comes in the next few years.
You made me feel better about it. All right, opening day. How do you feel opening day? What was your most memorable opening day, and how do you feel on opening day? I can tell you, I remember on opening day sitting behind Theo Epstein, his first year as a GM, 28, 29 years old, and Carl Crawford, did he walk him off? Anyway, Tampa Bay walked him off. His first game as a 28, 29-year-old GM, sitting in the row behind him, feeling like, oh my goodness, it's opening day, but still, it's opening day.
Yeah.
How about for you?
I have a couple of memories. My first one I remember in Cleveland, I was an intern, and they had a scout row that I sat in for that whole year, and I watched every game from behind the plate, and it was a really good way to learn the game from a scouting perspective. And I remember just standing up, the ballpark being full, the flag on the field, right? If you don't feel the butterflies that day, I think you got to try something else, right?
Yeah.
And then to me, all these years later, right, 18, 19, whatever it is that now that I'm in, it's like I still feel that same way on opening day. I still feel that moment of butterflies because it's the start of something that could be really special. And so I feel that same way again as I go. And maybe my first one in Minnesota, much like Theo, I was a little bit older than him, 32, 33 years old, and I was trying to, embrace it all and bring it in. My parents were out. It was just this family moment, my kids. And you just have this moment of like appreciation for there's so much hard work that goes in through the off season that you're finally there. Now the worst part about opening day is when you lose because you always have an off day the next day and it drives you nuts. You just want to get back to playing baseball again. So hopefully you win so you can enjoy that off day.
You also get the 0-162 headlines. I'm digging a date myself. Alan Trammell hitting a home run off Lee Smith after the Red Sox get Lee Smith. I'm like, oh, forget it. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
But perfectly well said. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on as always.